Hello and welcome to the first ever DC United Kingdom live show. But if you're listening on your podcast player, obviously you listen to the podcast. I am your host, James Graham, and it is always great to be here doing these podcasts, and I am a little bit nervous about doing this live, so bear with me if I stumble a couple of times. Alongside me this evening, I have got a guest with me. He is from the UK, and it's going to be nice to hear some British tones again, because it never happens too often, so it's always a welcome change. His name is Barney. He runs the UKNYCFC account. Say hello, Barney, and give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Good evening, James, and good evening, DC UK listeners. As James said, I run the UKNYCFC Instagram and Twitter accounts. Pretty much followed NYCFC since day one of their inception, since the City Group and Yankees decided to announce a sort of mega idea of a team. As soon as I saw players like David Villa, Frank Lampard being linked with the team, I was interested, a lot straight away. I always had already watched MLS. I'm a bit of a night owl, so staying up for MLS in the UK, naturally being a night owl, is the only football you can watch. When I started to get into it, I wanted to follow a team, but I didn't know, I couldn't find myself linking with any team. I wanted there to be, like, say, a link with a UK club or something like that. And it was around that time that the City Group decided, New York is our next base. My brother-in-law is a Man City fan and took me to my first ever Premier League game as Man City versus Charlton in about 2005.
Oh, wow.
So that was my tenuous link to why I support New York City FC.
Oh, it's not as bad as Henry's tenuous link to supporting Atlanta United, is it? Yeah,
of course. A change in an airport when he hasn't even been outside of Atlanta Airport onto Atlanta territory is, that's shady at best.
But hey, we all have these tenuous links. But as I just mentioned, Henry, he does the MLS UK show, and they are the show sponsors. So sorry about this, Barney. I've got to do the sponsorship part of it. Go and head over to their Twitter page, their Facebook page, their Instagram page. It's all MLS UK show. They're currently doing a isolation interview series at the moment. So their first one was done with a New York Red Bulls player, and this one that they've just released is with an Atlanta United player, and he is an Englishman, so a British guy abroad. So go and head over to your podcast app, search MLS UK show, and give them a listen to. Barney, how are you coping with COVID-19 and lockdown over here in the UK?
It's not been too bad. I could have it worse. I live with my partner and her 3 kids, so some could call that a challenge. But do you know what? On the whole, no one's killed each other.
How many rows have you had?
Do you know what? We probably only today had our first vague kind of disagreement, and it was over the most menial thing to do with the kids. So, you know what? On the whole, I think for 3 or 4 weeks that we've been stuck in the same house together, it's not been too bad. I've had to pop out a couple of times for work anyway, and I've done most of the shopping whilst we've been on lockdown. So I guess I've not felt so bad because I've managed to get out of the house 2 or 3 times a week anyway. So it's not been too bad. Work's been a challenge because I don't have too much work set. But I am being expected to work from home despite the fact that I work in retail.
And there's a funny little story about that, isn't there? The fact that we both work for the same company.
Yep, complete coincidence. When Elliot and Henry decided to put together sort of an MLS UK community and we all kind of got to know each other, it was like, oh, how bizarre. Myself and James both work for the same mobile telecommunications company in the UK. Which, like I say, complete coincidence, but interesting in that we have more than just MLS UK in common.
Oh, no, it is just mental. I mean, I literally, as soon as I saw that, not to sound like a stalker, as soon as I heard that you worked at O2, I was like, right, let's get on work chat, which is Facebook for work. I was like, right, drop him a message and just say hello. And that was bizarre, absolutely bizarre. I just remember telling the guys in our store about it, and they were just like, what? They couldn't believe it. So
probably one of the few times my work colleagues that are into football didn't mock me for following MLS. Actual sort of shock and intrigue, just like the small world syndrome of what are the chances and all that.
Oh no, tell me about it. It's just the amount of times I still get told that MLS is a retirement league, and I'm like, we've got to get rid of that stigma, haven't we?
Yeah. It's funny when I talk to my friends about it in a group, they'll all mock me, but when it's one-on-one, they'll be like, "Oh, I saw that thing that from so and so," or "Oh, did you see that atmosphere when LAFC scored?" Things like that. They'll happily mention that to me, but not when there's a group of us. When there's a group of us, it's what do you watch MLS for? You might as well watch Turkish football or something like that.
I mean, to be honest, if Turkish football was on, I'd happily watch it right now.
Well, I've been watching the Belarusian football on the Bet365. So.
It is awful, isn't it?
That makes me happy to be a Pompey fan.
So yeah, you just mentioned that you support Portsmouth. Why?
Okay, so my family are actually from this area originally, as much as I'm not from this area.
Yeah.
But I decided to come here in 2006 for university, and I never left that. And so, because my only Premier League experience before moving to Portsmouth was the Man City game I mentioned a moment ago. So as soon as I moved here, I was like, right, I've got Premier League here because Portsmouth were in the Premier League at the time. Let's get some tickets, go down to the odd game. I fell in love straight away. Yeah. I always remember my dad saying to me, even though my dad's not into football, I remember him saying things like "play up Pompey" whenever Portsmouth were on Match of the Day when I watched it as a kid or stuff like that. So naturally coming down here, I think most Portsmouth fans, yes, you could say it's rose-tinted lenses of your own club and all that kind of thing. But I think a lot of even non-Pompey fans will admit Portsmouth fans, especially their away fans, the atmosphere they create, the noise, the loyal following is almost one of a kind. So
yeah,
it's infectious once you start going.
And you got to quite a few of the away games as well. I've noticed off on your Instagram because you actually met up with Henry at Bolton Wanderers, didn't you?
I did, yep. So yeah, I do try and go to a few away games. But I reckon I probably in the last 2 years have been to like half of the away games, which I'm a season ticket holder as well. So it's like 75% of Pompey's games I go to. But yeah, I went to Pompey away in Bolton in January, I believe that was. And yeah, I've just met up for a quick 10-15 minute chat with Henry. None of us had ever really met in the MLS UK community as much as we've chatted online for a couple of years. But it was nice just to say hello, seeing as we were going to be within a few metres of each other in the stadium. Although it would be at different ends of the stadium. But yeah, it was nice to say hello and first time meeting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my question to you is, have you been to the Riverside Stadium?
I haven't. One of my current team members in my shop, who, yes, he's one of my staff, but equally we've become good mates through love of football. He is a massive Middlesbrough fan.
Good man.
I've now been to a Middlesbrough game with him. We went to Middlesbrough vs Spurs at the new Spurs Stadium in the FA Cup replay.
Good game.
It wasn't too bad. I don't remember much of it, if I'm brutally honest.
Did you have a few too many beers?
I had a couple of beverages. They're northern, and I was with his family. So, and I'm definitely southern, so my beer consumption rate is not as good as theirs.
We know how to drink up north.
Yeah, respectfully to them, they are a big family, so they've got plenty to soak it up. Whereas I'm only 5'5" and a bit, so there's not as much of me to soak up the beer.
Oh mate, but yeah, if you ever get the chance to, which is probably going to be next season, because looking at it, if the season resumes, Middlesbrough probably get relegated anyway. I don't know how are Portsmouth doing in League One at the moment.
So we're in the playoffs at the moment. So there is a chance we could bypass each other, but whether it be we miss out on promotion and you get relegated, or we go up and you somehow survive, we've my friend, we've said that we would 100% have to do Pompey away up there, and get that one ticked off, because we did Sunderland last season. I drove to Sunderland and back from the south coast in a day.
Ouch.
Which is about what, was it 800, 900 miles? I can't remember, one of the two. So yeah, that was a tough old day. Left at 8 in the morning and got back at 4 a.m. the next day.
Oh,
So that was good fun.
that is insane. That is insane. Let's chat about England. Let's talk about MLS. So obviously, NYCFC had a pretty good season last season, if it's fair to say, I think.
Yep.
Is that, for you, the best season that you guys have had on record there?
Yeah, I can't help but think when you look at it on paper, it was definitely the best season we've had so far as a club.
Yeah.
I think there is absolutely no doubt, though, that every fan, when you look at it just that one season, though, will feel disappointed with how it ended.
Yeah.
It felt like the playoff loss to Toronto was an absolute damp squib of an occasion. It just seemed like half the players didn't turn up. We maybe only played decent football for 15 to 20 minutes in the second half. The rest of the time, the players looked tired, almost like they needed a warm-up game before. But even though they played Philadelphia Union, was it, if I remember rightly? I'm trying to get my fixtures right. In the previous round, like a week before, but
Right.
it was it wasn't a great game. I was there. I managed to fly over for that game.
Yeah.
And the occasion was phenomenal, and it's the first time I've gone over since I've had the Twitter account set up. So managed to meet a fair few people who I'd met online, and the welcome I got from a fair few was phenomenal. I had my sort of almost now trademark bright orange Pompey top on top of my New York top on the way out, as it had got quite cold late in the evening. I think it was about 10 p.m. by the time the game finished.
Yeah.
And I probably had more people recognise me with that top on than I did with just a normal New York top on, because I guess I stood out and I had like 3 Latino Mexican type guys come up to me like, hey, it's the Portsmouth guy that runs the UK account. Like,
wow.
That was quite cool, because it shows that people are recognising my account. It's only got like 300 followers, but the amount of interaction that we get, and I've had a few people contact me to leak a few bits of stadium information in the past. So it's quite nice that that interaction gets recognised and so on. But back to the season, as you asked, it felt like a great season, but definitely that last game was it felt like a sour end to the season.
Yeah, it's I know about sour ends at the moment with DC United right now. It's last season wasn't a great one, let's put it that way. But 2018 for us was fantastic. That end to the season when we opened up Audi Field and went on that streak right at the end. That was insane. That was something else, and I was glad I was able to get out there for 2018. And get out there for 2019 as well. I think you probably agree with me. The support and the atmosphere in MLS, there's nothing like it, is there?
It's it took me by surprise when I went over in 2018. I managed to get to a game at Yankee Stadium. It wasn't just any game; it was the derby as well against the New Jersey Energy Drink Company. I also then 4 days later managed to see Orlando versus Atlanta in Orlando, and I give it massive credit to the Lions, or whatever they call themselves. The standing section that they have, the wall as they know it. Oh, yes. What an atmosphere! Absolutely phenomenal. It's an advertisement to any team around the world who wants to try and get a standing section done right.
Yeah.
The atmosphere, the way the fans sing together, but they're allowed to drink in the stands, but it's all friendly. It just makes it feel so much more of an experience, whereas I feel like British football especially seems so, pardon the pun, locked down. It feels like there's a lot missing from British football right now, that the days have passed, unfortunately, is what's put those restrictions on it. And because we had such things like Hillsborough, it means that British fans seem to be the ones that have been not necessarily penalised, but certainly maybe missing out. And MLS is a prime example of how the stadiums have been built in such a way that they entice that experience and that energy amongst the fans.
It's again, speaking from experience going to Rowdy Field, there isn't a bad seat in the house. So I've sat at two different ends each time that I've been. So I sat in kind of just the normal general supporters section, just wherever you can go, and that was nice. It was good. It was nice and chill. A couple of beers in the stand, which is just unheard of over here. I mean, for anyone who's listening, in the UK, we don't get to drink in the stands, and I feel like we miss out on that, unless you go to a rugby game, and then that's absolutely fine. You can go and have whatever you want. But in the States, it was just absolutely brilliant. And then last year when I went, I was in the proper supporter section, so I was with the Screaming Eagles, and the atmosphere was just absolutely electric. It just makes the hairs on your arms just stand up, and it's just fantastic. And if anyone who's out there and you're listening, just get out there and just have a good time and go to an MLS game, because there is nothing like it. So, speaking of stadiums, how's it going for New York City FC?
I had a feeling this would always be a topic of conversation on a non-NYCFC podcast. Yeah, stadium news is not one NYCFC fans like talking about. The off-season for NYC fans was tough, because it was over a month. I'll say nearly 2 months, but I think that's more exaggerating it, because it was only just over a month, but of mostly radio silence from the club.
Yeah.
The Twitter account, the Instagram almost went mute. The only things that came out felt like things that had been retweeted by MLS centrally, posts advertising things like the sale on the MLSstore.com.
Standard stuff then.
Stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. The stuff where you see that they're part of a franchise league setup that they don't have control over.
Yeah.
There was stuff like that coming out, and that was it. So for fans to get literally nothing from the club during a time when the club has nothing going on, so that's prime time to surely get involved with stadium progression and such. Yes, there'll be certain members of the back office or front office, whichever way around you say it, doing transfer business. But I mean, we only bought 2 players in the winter, I should say.
Is that it?
So. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, as I said on MLS UK with Elliot and Henry, we almost didn't need. I didn't feel like we needed to fill many gaps, because we didn't lose any players either.
Right. Yeah.
There was a couple. There was technically more than 2, because we did buy Keaton Parks from Benfica. Keaton Parks was only on loan last season, so he was brought in permanently over the winter break.
That's a great signing, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal, especially for the USA as well, because he's got a lot of prospect about him. He's very young still. I want to say he's 22, maybe 23 tops. Could be completely wrong with that, but I'm
on the Google.
Yeah, but he's definitely the kind of player that if you're wanting that, a player he reminds me of is Patrick Vieira. He's that kind of holding midfielder who doesn't mind being passed the ball in a tight situation. It looks amazingly calm for a big, lanky player. Definitely a Vieira, Abu Dhabi kind of player. Getting him permanent was, I feel, a massively big piece of business, because as soon as the season ended, all the kind of journos who have links with the club were saying, no, he's gone.
Yeah.
The deal was 100% only for a year. He's part of Benfica's future plans, but I don't know, maybe they didn't see enough in him. Maybe we saw more in him than they did. Who knows? Doesn't matter. We've got him. And I think that's the good bit of business that we did. So, but going back to the stadium, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent again. The stadium is tough. Because we've not made progress.
Yeah.
There's been some leaks of plans coming out, and then that speculation has been completely quashed by, without explaining the very long story, people that work in the area that where the stadium's meant to be built have said, no, this absolutely isn't happening. These plans haven't even got through to the boards that they need to get through to. So we're talking years before even a spade can be shoveled into the ground.
Wow.
We're a long way away from anything. So, by the sounds of the way we've set up our Champions League home games, it sounds like we've more or less been forced to do a deal with the energy drink company to host our games in New Jersey for at least 3 years if we qualify for the Champions League.
Ouch.
So I think the expectation is that we would, if we qualify again, we would have to somehow do a deal to get Yankee Stadium open early.
Yeah.
Just to give a quick insight into that. So Yankee Stadium can't be used until the end of March. So every season we play pretty much our first 2 or 3 games away.
Yeah.
Because it's too cold for Yankee Stadium almost to operate.
What?
The baseball season doesn't begin till April. So
Sorry,
therefore,
it's too cold.
Well, if you've been to New York or the North in March, you would know.
Well, to be fair, I was in New York beginning of April last year. It wasn't that cold. I mean, I am a northerner, so there is that side of things. But
well, I think the bigger part is more that the baseball season doesn't begin until April.
Yeah.
So therefore, Yankee Stadium isn't open. So without New York City paying Yankee Stadium to be open early, and because Champions League happens as early as end of February, it would mean a lot of extra operating costs that it's basically cheaper to effectively rent another building that is open, like Red Bull Arena.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I saw the news about the Red Bull Arena and you guys playing in it, I was just like, my jaw genuinely dropped. I could not believe it. And I can imagine the fan outrage, that must have been really high.
It was crazy how much infighting there was between fans. I got into quite a Twitter spat with a few fans that ended up with the Viking Army, which is the Red Bull New York team's official fan group. It's like the equivalent of the third rail for NYCFC.
Yeah.
Even they retweeted one of my screenshotted posts that I deleted.
What?
Because of the fact that I suggested that NYC fans sticker the stadium. Stickering is a term used by fans all around the world.
Yes.
Where if you're on an away day, you take stickers of your club or your fan group and you sticker, say, a toilet or a lamppost. It's fan culture. It's done around the world. Every stadium, even in America that I've been to, I've seen stickers everywhere. Yeah. It's just part of culture. But there was an odd few fans who took offence that I was suggesting, vandalism and graffitiing. It got taken way out of context. Because the term I used was sticker the hell out of the stadium. I mean, right. I can get where they're taking it out of context, but come on, it's a thing. It's a thing of football culture for years and years and years, decades even.
But, I mean, were they genuinely expecting to see the full stadium covered in stickers?
God knows. But they even the tweet that was sent out by the Viking Army had my name, my personal and my UKNYCFC account mentioned. They even mentioned like the Red Bull Arena, the head of security at the arena. I guess in case I turned up to try and bar me or something. Ludicrous, hilarious. But I was like, ooh, the opposition hate me. I like this. That was my only thought was, you know what, I've rubbed up the rival, so bring it on.
I mean, to be fair, from a DC United supporter, great work.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. I would never ever get involved in any kind of actual fighting or stupid old school hooliganism. That's ridiculous. That's not for me. But something as light-hearted as shoving a sticker on a lamppost just to say we were here is, I thought was harmless, good fun. That was taken way out of context, but that was the kind of but there was NYCFC fans. That was my original point. There was NYCFC fans arguing against me, saying, "No, this is wrong. Look at the image you're portraying." I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
What?
This was the kind of infighting that announcing that we were going to be playing in our rival stadium was causing. That fans were just going off on one about protecting the brand of the club and this and that. I'm like, our club is 6 years old. We've barely got a brand. If we can't even have our own stadium. We're playing in our rival stadium for a home game.
Yeah,
don't get me started on brand and so on.
And how another thing that just popped into my head is obviously one of your former legends, David Villa, has his own football club now, doesn't he?
He does indeed, yes.
He's got a stadium.
Well, they have a park, yeah. So yes, David Villa has set up a USL team, which will probably start in 2021, maybe 2022. I believe 2021 is the goal. They will probably play in USL 2, if that's a thing, right? USL 2.
I think so.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's like a USL 1 and 2.
There is, yeah.
Something like that.
USL Championship, USL League 1 and yeah, it's a bit like the EFL.
Something like that. Anyway, they're called Queensborough FC, so they're going to be playing in Queens, New York, which is one of the 5 boroughs. So they will be the first New York team, realistically, since the Cosmos to have their own ground.
Yeah.
So they've even beaten New York City to have their own ground. But like I say, they are going to be playing, right on the edge of the 5 boroughs. So yeah, credit to him. I'm slightly shocked, but equally, I suppose it shows the value in New York that Villa has seen. Technically, yes, there is already 2 big teams in the Red Bulls and NYCFC in the New York greater area, but they've seen enough that there's room for a 3rd. Obviously Cosmos will argue they're in there as well, but if anyone could tell me what league they play in exactly, you can't really mention them anymore.
I think they're in the NASL, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right.
That's it. Again, I'm on the Google.
It's amazing that, again, David Villa has seen that there's potential for even more in New York. I just think it's brilliant because, let's say it kicks off really well, they manage to build their own stadium, then who's to say in 5-10 years they aren't an MLS team as well, and we have a real New York derby in NYCFC versus Queensborough FC.
Yeah, I mean it could happen, and it's nice to see more and more, I'm going to say, soccer happening in the US, and it's great to see how much it's becoming bigger over there, because it is such a great sport and it's the one true football. Sorry for any NFL fans out there. But yeah, it's fantastic to see. In the current climate for MLS, I mean, obviously we've got quite a lot of teams right now, and this is going to be quite a big debate, and I know there's a lot of people who are for and against it. Promotion, relegation, would you want to see it in MLS?
So yes, I mean I am if football is done the traditional way, then yeah, I absolutely think that relegation and promotion should be a thing that exists. I do, however, ever so slightly lean towards the MLS way of thinking, or the Don Garber way of thinking, in that it wouldn't work with MLS, not with a franchise setup, and not when you've only got 32 teams or whatever it will be in a couple of years. If you had 40 or 50, maybe, but even then you've got to rely on enough teams being stronger across the country and not just in one conference or whatever, so that there could be, say, a 15-team top tier, and then maybe 2, like a West and an East tier 2 kind of thing. Not too dissimilar to how the National League, which is like, what, the 5th and 6th tiers of English football. Yeah. So you have the National League conference, and then below that you have the North and South National League. You could see how that could be how MLS could work in it. But no, I don't think with the small amount of clubs that the MLS has, unless you were to somehow include the USL into it, which because of the franchise setup, it couldn't work.
I would love to see it, and I think I'm on the same page as you, where I would love to see it intra-conference. So I would keep it the Eastern and Western Conference as it is right now, and I would have it where you could go and have promotion relegation through a playoff structure again. So not too dissimilar to what we've got now, but in an intra-conference kind of way. So I think there's ways it can be done. The thing that keeps cropping up with people who I speak to about it is the fact that you've got the MLS fees, and fans and owners wouldn't want to see their clubs going under as such, where they've spent, I think, how much did Nashville put in? I think it was like $200 million or something like that.
Crazy money, yeah. I wouldn't be able to quote you.
It's just that I totally understand where they wouldn't want to see $200 million to start in MLS, and then the next season they're relegated and they're playing against bit part teams who were pulling in crowds of 2,000 or whatever. I can understand that part of it, but you've got to have the drama and the fight and something to play for throughout the season, wherever you sit in the table, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, like you said, because there is just so much potential for more drama and everything that comes with promotion and relegation. But yeah, I love the US Open Cup for that. I'm a big cup fan of cup football anyway. I love the FA Cup, the League Cup, all of the cups that Pompey now have to play in, being a third-tier team. I think that's it. It's in the DNA of football that you have a league and a cup setup. So, at least the MLS clubs get to play against some of these other teams. Like when you see like teams like New Mexico United last season coming that have only existed for a year, getting to where they got, their following already looks phenomenal, and I hope their rise continues and they get more and more fans and perhaps grow big enough to be an MLS team too again. But yeah, it's one you could debate all day. You could absolutely debate all day. I just think there needs to be a lot more teams before it can be even something that even Don Garber could. I mean, it's him that you've got to convince. He's boss man, and he outright has said no. I think someone asked him last year, if MLS had 40 teams in 5 years' time, would you start to think about relegation? And he straight away said no. So it's like, is it even worth a debate if he's been that blunt on it?
Well, yeah, that's it. I think it's a worthy debate to keep on having, because things change.
Yep.
And you look at what's happening at the moment. Obviously, I want to talk about the fact that we're in mid-April. We've only had 2 games of the season. We've got to have 34 regular season games by the end of October. Are we going to get it? Do you think we'll actually finish this season?
My gut feeling is yes. I think, if anything, a calendar like we have in MLS is probably, there's more of a chance of the season being finished because we've got more of the year to go. I could see things like the playoff setup being completely changed. Maybe, even say things like the US Open Cup perhaps being postponed for this year. I mean, it makes sense for certain competitions to kind of almost give way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just switching back to England for a moment, like I know that, say, there was speculation like Portsmouth are meant to be playing at Wembley a couple of weeks ago in the 3rd and 4th tier cup for English teams. But there's now speculation that game won't possibly get played until as like a season opener. So like the Community Shield happens here in the UK, that's between the winner of the FA Cup and the Premier League, that they'll use the Football League trophy as like a similar kind of thing. They'll use it as like a season opener whenever the next season does begin. Yeah. It's a competition that doesn't mean a lot. In the one in England, I mean, whereas the US Open Cup, yes, I know the winner gets a Champions League berth, but could you just, move that to the league for just 1 year and, allow that to be postponed? Like, say, things like the Euros have been postponed and the Olympics have been postponed.
Yeah.
What's the harm in just putting that aside for 1 year?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if we're going to resume the season, so say it does happen, which I think they're quoting, it's June now, if I remember rightly.
June 8th, I think
Yeah.
I saw that is the post today. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what'll happen is they'll play against obviously the same conference teams, but I don't think they'll play opposite conference.
That's an idea. Certainly something that could happen. You could see, yeah, and then like just maybe cross-conference playoffs or something like that
Yeah.
at the end of the season.
Yeah, just literally do it as we would see it normally, but the fact that we wouldn't play LAFC or anyone like that, and then if you win your Eastern Conference final, then you play the Western Conference winners, and you still have your MLS Cup winners. So there's still something to play for, and you've got a lot less games to play as well and complete. So for me, that would be how I would do it.
One way of doing it. One way of doing it. Yeah, you're right.
I would also drop the Leagues Cup as well for this year.
Oh, totally. Yeah, those little sub competitions that, again, with respect to the competitions, whether you're going to take them seriously or not, they're very, very new. That and the one-off Campione's Cup match, they can totally be postponed for a year.
Yeah, it's ugh. I don't understand why that tournament started. I saw it and I was like, I can't see this really taking off. But the way they've done it for this year, I kind of like it. And I think if they continue that way, it's basically like a UEFA Cup, isn't it?
Yeah. Effectively, it's because it's most of the teams not in the Champions League. Am I right in saying?
Yeah.
There's no one in from the Champions League in it, is there? So
yeah,
it gives them an opportunity to play more teams, different teams, more experience, and so on.
Yeah. So I would like to see it still happen now. I'm kind of over my initial. How am I going to put it? Oh, I'm trying to think of the word. This is awful when you're live and you can't think of the word. You know what I mean? I'm over my initial mishaps over it. I don't know, that's not the right word, but
yeah. So
you get what I mean.
There's you almost. I think where I'm at with football and missing it, that I don't care how it comes back. I just want it.
Yeah.
I don't care what way they bring it back. I don't care what suffers. Just bring me back football.
Honestly, this is just. How long has it been now? It's been a month and a half or something.
Yeah.
I think, or just over a month now.
Just about a month. MLS kicked off early March, didn't it? So, it can't be much more than a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick message just dropped in. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing? Nice to see you dropping in a comment there. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just need football back. I think we all. To be honest, I just need sport back.
Yeah.
Just any kind of sport. I mean, for you listeners out there, I like any kind of sport, whether it is cricket. I'm not such a big fan of tennis. I don't mind it. I will watch it if it's there. If there's not much else on. Winter Olympics, I love bobsledding. I love watching that and ski jumping. But yeah, just literally throw any sport on and I'll happily watch it. I've literally lost my train of thought. Here we go. So back to lockdown stuff. What kind of things have you been catching up with on Netflix then?
Well, being a Portsmouth fan, I've naturally had to watch Sunderland Till I Die season 2 because of the big feature Portsmouth has in episode 5.
Yes.
Portsmouth played Sunderland last season at Wembley. I won't spoil the result, but it was a great day for Portsmouth fans. So that was pretty phenomenal to be a part of. But yeah, the Sunderland Till I Die, whatever team you're a fan of, whatever part of the world you're from, it's an amazing insight into how a non-top tier club suffers and strives financially to live and to carry on. You know, they've been they're technically trying to go through their second takeover in a matter of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But the current owner can't seem to get the right buyer by the looks of it. But it's a phenomenal watch, really interesting, like I say, to see how the insides work and the struggles they go through. So, but equally, it's just like any business now. It is looked at as more of a business than a community asset. But yeah, Sunderland side has a big one. I've just finished watching Tiger King, which I'm sure just about most of the world has watched by now. If you haven't, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't, that's Carol Baskin's fault, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't been walking around going, it's Carol Baskin, like the TikTok song, then, you've not lived during lockdown.
Who'd have thought the big talking point would be lockdown and Tiger King?
Yeah.
Who'd have thought that?
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else you've been watching?
Well, I haven't watched it during isolation, but I hadn't long finished it before isolation and lockdown happened, which would be the what's it called? Man in the High Castle on Amazon Video.
I started it, but I've not finished it.
Again, it's the same with all these kind of multi-season dramas. It takes you a while to get into it, but it gets better and better. I felt the whole way through. The long story short is it kind of tells a story of what would have happened if the Nazis and the Japanese had won World War II. You have America split into two. On the East Coast is the Nazis in control, and on the West Coast is the Japanese.
Yep.
However, some people discover there's some sort of parallel universe. That was the only bit I don't do, because I don't do sci-fi. I'm not a big sci-fi person at all. So parallel universe kind of stuff nearly made me lose interest. But it's just about got a good enough storyline that it kept me hooked in.
Yeah.
There's 4 seasons of it on Amazon Prime. And the main story is the rebels trying to overturn the Nazis and the Japanese hold on America. And trying to get their America back. So, yeah, it's worth a watch. Takes many, many twists that you don't expect, which, again, with a good program is the way to keep you engrossed. So, yeah, go watch that if you haven't seen it. It's very good.
I'm going to ask this because I know someone who is currently watching. He's dropped a comment. Stu Cotton, football now, please. Thank you. Have you tossed a coin to your Witcher?
Have I what now?
Right. Have you watched The Witcher?
I haven't. No.
Oh no! So there's a song that was going around back when it was on, which is called "Toss a Coin to Your Witcher," and you need to watch it. It's such a great program. Absolutely adore it. We started watching it again, me and my wife, which is kind of tricky watching stuff now when we've got a baby. That's been a bit tricky. So we've been watching short episodes of stuff. So things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's been since the little lad was born back in early March. We're on to the 4th season now. So we've kind of brushed through that. Just a little. Sorry, comments just dropped in. Aaron06, who is the _Bronx Blues from Instagram. I'm guessing that's a New York City FC fan then?
It is. I'm part of just a little group of NYCFC fans that I got recently invited into on Instagram, so I dropped them the link to the chat, to the video, just to have a few more people listening in, see if anyone liked our live chat.
Nice. He's just said Keaton Parks follows him.
Fair. Well done for them.
Well done, Aaron. That's pretty impressive. I'm just trying to think if I actually got any players following me over on Instagram. Don't think so.
I've had no one follow me. I've had a few retweets and such like that, but no, nothing more than that. So.
And the big thing is the club DC United actually follows me on Twitter, and they actually share quite a lot of stuff. So I absolutely adore DC United for doing that. They've been fantastic, supporting me in what we're doing here. Cheers, Aaron, for liking the stream. Appreciate that. DC United are fantastic. They've been great with me. They love what we're doing here, and long may that continue.
Credit to them, but also credit to yourself for what you've done for DC and MLS in the UK, because in order for the club to have fed you the players they have and so on, that shows that what you're doing is recognised, and any club that's a growing business like the MLS clubs are will appreciate the effort you're putting in. So, nice one.
If there was a webcam on me, you'd see me blushing right now. Cool. I think I haven't got much else to really say or talk about now. Is there anything you want to throw my way?
Do you know what? I think we've covered most of the things MLS UK wise. I would have said similar things about going over to the US and making sure you check out a team. You know, even if you're going on holiday to the US, but you're not near the team you support or you haven't picked a team yet, just go watch a game and realise how Americans do like soccer ball. They're doing it and they're doing it well. And I feel sort of bizarrely proud to be kind of a little UK representative of the US soccer scene. So it's it's good to chat about it and try and spread the love, because there needs to be more of that.
No, absolutely. And just a quick shout out to all the guys over at MLS UK. Go and search for it over on Twitter. It's hashtag MLS UK. You'll see all the content that's been going out. So whether it's stuff from myself, whether it's stuff from you, Barney, whether it's stuff from Taylor at Orlando City UK, who is listening in right now. He's just messaged me saying he's listening in. And all the stuff that we're doing, and the guys over the MLS UK show, we're just trying to show that MLS is a great league already. There's a lot of entertainment. There's lots of goals. It's very unpredictable from game to game, season to season. There's not much you can put a bet on and actually get it right. Unless it's Carlos Vela becoming leading goal scorer, then that's pretty much a given. But yeah, it's a fantastic league. So if you haven't picked a team, pick DC United, obviously. Why else would you be listening into this show? I mean, come on. But if you don't want to pick DC United, that's fine. Just pick any MLS team. And so if you're listening not in the UK, just go over and find us over at MLS UK hashtag and just follow us and just be a part of the community. That's what we're about. We want to build the community up, so come and join in. Is pretty much the main thing I'm trying to say here. At the end of the show, I always get my guests to give themselves a little shout out of where they can follow and how they can follow you. So where can people see your content?
So at the moment, I am just on Twitter and Instagram. I don't use Instagram too much. Mostly just follow the stories and keep an eye on players and their things that they're getting up to in isolation. But most of the time I'm over on Twitter, which is at UKNYCFC. So it's the UK, then NYCFC, not the other way around like most of the others.
Cool. Well, thanks, Barney, for being on the show. I do appreciate it. It's always great to get guests on, and I hope everyone out there, you've enjoyed the live version. And if you're listening to a replay, I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you're not following me, go over onto Twitter at DC United Kingdom. On Facebook, you can like the page at DC United Kingdom FC, and it's the same over on Instagram as well. There is a website, dcunitedkingdom.com, or you can actually hit dcunitedkingdom.co.uk now, because we're searchable through that as well now. I bought the domain. You can become a member, there's merchandise, there's loads of stuff on there, so give us a search, drop the love, drop the likes, and until next time, Vamos United.